When music teacher Mrs. Peterson called the new student Emma Clark to the front of the class, she only intended to embarrass her. "Since you're so quiet, perhaps it's time we heard your voice," she said in front of the class. Emma reluctantly stood up. A minute later, the mocking smile had disappeared from the teacher's face, replaced by complete astonishment. Westridge School of the Arts was the most prestigious music and performing arts school in the city. Founded in 1968, the school had been known for over 50 years for producing the country's most talented young artists. With its 5-acre campus, historic main building, modern studios, 500-seat concert hall, and programs taught by state artists, it was nationally respected. Being accepted to the school's music department was an honor for young musicians. Each year, thousands of students applied, but only 5% were accepted. Graduates typically went on to the world's best conservatories like Juilliard, Berkeley, or the Royal Academy of Music, or directly into professional music careers. Victoria Hall, the most impressive building at Westridge, rose in the center of the campus. With its Gothic-style architecture, this structure reflected the school's artistic spirit. The music department, located on the 3rd floor of the building, was equipped with modern studios, acoustically designed chamber music halls, and individually sound-insulated practice rooms. However, Mrs. Peterson's vocal performance class was one of the most challenging and dreaded courses at Westridge. This class, which ran Tuesday and Thursday mornings from 8:30 to 10, tested the nerves of even the most talented vocal students. Patricia Peterson, 52, was a disciplined, perfectionist music educator. Tall, slim, and always formally dressed, she had a distant and authoritative air about her with her sharp gaze, thin-frame glasses, and silver-mixed hair, always perfectly styled in a bun. Mrs. Peterson had been teaching at Westridge for 15 years and was one of the most feared educators in the music faculty. She had performed on Broadway musicals for many years, starring in several major productions. However, when her solo career didn't progress as she'd hoped, she turned to teaching. She projected her own disappointment onto her students with a harsh attitude. "If you don't have the courage to take the stage, you have no place in this class," she would often tell her students. "Show business is ruthless, and I'm preparing you for that. Don't look for praise here. No one will applaud you in the real world just for being good. You need to be perfect." Her students had nicknamed her the Prussian General, behind her back, of course. To her face, they would always say Mrs. Peterson or ma'am, never daring to address her any other way. That Thursday morning, Mrs. Peterson's 3rd-year vocal performance class gathered in the large studio on the 3rd floor of Victoria Hall. Studio 301 was one of the most impressive spaces in the music department, an 800-square-foot large bright room. One wall was covered with mirrors, while the opposite side offered large windows with a campus view. In the corner stood a valuable Steinway grand piano. The acoustically designed ceiling and walls ensured perfect sound dispersion. About 30 students sat in chairs arranged in a semicircle. Most were between 16 and 18 years old and wore the Westridge uniform: navy blazer and plaid skirt for girls, navy blazer and gray trousers for boys. However, since Westridge allowed students to express their personal style, many had personalized their uniforms with accessories, different shoes, or hairstyles. Mrs. Peterson entered the studio precisely on time, as always with her notebook, iPad, and pencil in hand. Her dark navy suit, light makeup, and tightly styled hair gave her the usual authoritative air. As soon as she entered the room, conversation ceased and students straightened up. "Good morning, class," she said in a cold voice as she approached the podium. "Good morning, Mrs. Peterson," the students responded in unison, almost reflexively. "Today we'll be working on vocal range and dynamic control," Mrs. Peterson explained as she opened her notebook. "You did prepare the pieces I assigned last week, didn't you? Let's begin with volunteers. Who would like to go first?" The usual hands went up. The star students of the class, always ready, always eager to perform. Sarah Williams in the front row, known for her bright red hair and powerful mezzo-soprano voice. Beside her, Michael Chen, with his flawless tenor voice and a scholarship offer from Juilliard. And in the 3rd row, Jessica Reynolds, the star of the theater department specializing in musical performance. Mrs. Peterson called Sarah first. "Williams, you prepared Bellini's Casta Diva, correct?" Begin. Sarah stood up, took a deep breath, and began to sing the piece. Her voice was strong and impressive, but Mrs. Peterson's sharp ear caught every small mistake. "Stop," said the teacher after Sarah had sung only 4 measures. "Your diaphragm support is insufficient, Sarah. You should breathe from your lower ribs, not your shoulders, and you're forcing the voice in the upper tones. Begin again." Sarah started again, this time paying attention to Mrs. Peterson's instructions. She was doing better, but the teacher still stopped her frequently, made corrections, and sometimes offered harsh criticism. When it was Michael's turn, he received similar treatment. "Michael, you're trembling in the upper register. Focus the resonance on your soft palate, not your throat. And please don't try to be dramatic. Perfect the technique first." Jessica was criticized in the same way. "Jessica, your articulation is unclear. You must pronounce each syllable clearly and distinctly. The opera may be in Italian, but the audience should understand the words." When half the class had completed their performances, Mrs. Peterson's eye caught a girl sitting quietly in the corner of the room. Emma Clark had transferred to the school 2 weeks ago and had barely spoken since. She always sat in the back rows, gave only short answers when asked, and avoided eye contact. Emma's story was unclear. According to information from Student Affairs, her family moved frequently, and Emma had previously been homeschooled. Her admission to Westridge was somewhat unusual. She had transferred midterm and hadn't gone through the normal auditions. Rumor had it that her father was an important diplomat, and the school administration had given Emma special treatment for this reason. Emma was 17, of medium height, slim, with brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore the standard Westridge uniform, but, unlike the other girls, hadn't added any personal touches, wearing it exactly as issued. Unlike other students, she didn't wear flashy clothes, makeup, or expensive accessories. She always carried a small notebook and took careful notes during classes. Mrs. Peterson had ignored Emma until now. Students who preferred to stay in the background were generally not suitable for a serious music career. Performance required courage and confidence, but today, perhaps with a desire to see a new name on her list of perfect victims, she decided to target Emma. "Miss Clark," she said suddenly, as the attention of the entire class turned to Emma, "we haven't heard from you yet. You've been with us for 2 weeks, and you haven't sung a single note. Perhaps today you could share your voice with us?" Emma shifted uncomfortably, her eyes fixed on the floor. "I'm not ready," she said in a soft voice, barely audible. "Not ready?" repeated Mrs. Peterson, raising her eyebrows. Her tone was now sharper, and there was a slight gleam of victory in her eyes. She had found a weak student. "When you enrolled in this class, I assumed you understood that you needed to be ready at all times. This is not a hobby, Miss Clark. This is a serious educational program." A few chuckles were heard in the class. This was a typical Peterson moment, humiliating a shy student in front of the class. Some students looked uncomfortable, but no one dared to intervene. "I just wanted to practice a bit more," said Emma with a slight tremor in her voice. "I'm working on a new piece, and it's not ready yet." "Miss Clark," said Mrs. Peterson, moving to the piano, "this is a performance class. It's not for those with stage fright. Since you're so quiet, perhaps it's time we heard your voice. Please come up here." Emma slowly stood up, feeling all eyes on her. Her classmates watched with curiosity, some concerned for Emma, others looking forward to the upcoming Peterson slaughter. A few students had even prepared their phones. Becoming a Peterson victim was almost a rite of passage at Westridge and was usually shared on social media. Emma slowly moved forward, still not lifting her eyes from the floor. She adjusted her uniform skirt, tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. The tension was palpable in every step she took. When she reached the piano, Mrs. Peterson looked down at her. "What have you prepared?" she asked, her voice sharp and impatient. "Or shall we start with Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star?" A few more students chuckled. Emma's cheeks flushed slightly, but her voice was calm. "I've been working on O Mio Babbino Caro," she said almost in a whisper. Mrs. Peterson's eyebrows rose even higher. This was a famous aria from Puccini's Gianni, a difficult piece, especially for a novice student. It required technical skill, breath control, and emotional depth. An ambitious choice, said the teacher in a mocking tone. Puccini, huh? Well, let's hear it. Let's see what you can do with this opera aria. Mrs. Peterson sat at the piano and began to play the prelude. Her fingers danced over the keys, making a perfect introduction, as if to demonstrate her experience in the opera world. Then she looked at Emma, nodding her head at the moment she should enter. Emma took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and the first note hung in the air, crystal clear, with perfect intonation. It was such a pure, powerful, and emotional voice that the class suddenly fell silent. As Emma's voice filled the room, the students' jaws dropped. "O mio Babbino Caro, mi piace è bello, bello." This was not the voice of a novice student. This was a professional-level, thoroughly trained soprano voice. Every note was sung with perfect control and emotion. Emma's face had completely changed. No longer the shy young girl, but an artist deeply feeling and expressing the character's emotions. Her eyes were no longer looking at the floor, but gazing into the distance as if seeing the character's emotions. Mrs. Peterson was so surprised she almost hit the wrong keys. Her fingers hesitated for a moment, then her professional instincts kicked in, and she continued playing. Her eyes were wide open, watching Emma. The student before her wasn't just singing this piece, but interpreting it, with the experience and depth of a professional opera artist. Her voice control was flawless, every note perfectly placed, every phrase full of meaning. As the aria progressed, Emma became more liberated. Her hands were no longer at her sides. They moved with the rhythm of the music, reflecting the character's emotions. Her voice volume and color changed, as would be expected from an experienced soprano. Sometimes soft and delicate, sometimes powerful and passionate. Mi struggo e mi tormento. Oh Dio, vorrei morir. In the final section, Emma's voice completely filled the room, reaching an emotional climax, and then gently closed with the final note. When the aria ended, there was complete silence in the studio. It was as if everyone was holding their breath, afraid to break the magic of this extraordinary moment. Then suddenly one student, Michael, began to applaud. Others immediately joined in, and the room filled with the sound of applause. Some students had even risen to their feet. Sarah's mouth was still open, while Jessica was typing something on her phone, probably researching whether the voice she had just heard was real. Emma stepped out of her performance persona and became that shy girl again, lowering her eyes, clasping her hands in front of her. Mrs. Peterson sat in shock at the piano. In her 20-year teaching career, she had rarely heard a performance of this caliber, especially from a 17-year-old student. "That was extraordinary, Miss Clark," she finally said, her voice completely different from her previous sharp tone. Now it was full of respect and astonishment. "Where did you train? Such technique, such control, requires years of training." Emma shifted uncomfortably, leaning against the piano for support. "I've had a few private teachers," she said vaguely. "Private teachers?" repeated Mrs. Peterson. "May I ask who they were? Such talent, such training, extraordinary." Emma hesitated for a moment before answering, as if trying to decide what to say. "I worked with Maestro Giuliani in Milan," she finally said softly. A murmur of astonishment spread through the class. Maestro Antonio Giuliani was one of the world's most respected vocal coaches, the former music director of Milan's La Scala. He only worked with professional artists, and his students performed worldwide. Mrs. Peterson's jaw dropped. She was in complete shock. "Maestro Giuliani? But he only works with professionals. And in Milan, you..." From the back rows, a student, Jessica, jumped to her feet, phone in hand. "Wait a minute," she said excitedly. "Emma Clark." She looked at her phone, then back at Emma. "Are you Emma Claridini?" A new wave of shock spread through the room. Emma Claridini was a rising star in the opera world. She had made her debut at La Scala at 15, had since toured Europe and Asia, and had recorded 3 award-winning albums. There was now chaos in the class. Everyone had started looking at their phones, searching for the name Emma Claridini, comparing photos. "It's her!" shouted one student. "There's a video of her concert in Tokyo." The New York Times called her the youngest opera star of the century, when she sang at the Metropolitan Opera last year, added another. Emma, realizing she could no longer hide, nodded slightly. Yes, she said softly. My real name is Emma Claridini. Clark is a shortened version of my stage surname. Now the entire class was on their feet, whispers and excited conversations rising. Everyone was experiencing the shock of this extraordinary revelation. Some students had raised their phones, ready to take selfies with Emma. Please, said Emma, raising her hand. I just want to be a normal student. Please don't share this on social media. Mrs. Peterson, recovering from her shock, stood up and turned to the students. Put your phones down. Now, this is a classroom, not a paparazzi zone. Her voice had returned to its authoritative tone, but now with a different purpose, to protect Emma. The students reluctantly lowered their phones, but their excitement hadn't diminished. Everyone was experiencing the shock of seeing the celebrity among them. But why? Asked Mrs. Peterson, still in shock. Why did you hide your identity? Why did you come here? You're already a professional artist. A slight smile appeared on Emma's face, her eyes shining with a clarity never seen before. I just wanted to experience a normal high school life. I've been touring constantly since I was 12, constantly performing. I never had a normal adolescence, never had real friends, never got to be an ordinary student. Emma took a deep breath, as if a weight had been lifted from her. My father is a diplomat, yes, but he's also my manager. Tours, concerts, recordings. My life was filled with these. I decided to take a break last year. I just wanted to be normal. I came to Westridge because I wanted to just be a student, not a star. I wanted to just be Emma, not Emma Claridini. But why didn't you tell us? Asked Mrs. Peterson, her voice now completely devoid of its previous confident, authoritative tone. Did the school administration know? Only Principal Harrington knows, said Emma. And I didn't tell because she gestured to the class's reaction. This is why. People start seeing me differently. I'm no longer just Emma, I'm Emma Claridini. Everything changes. Mrs. Peterson stood before Emma, now truly seeing her for the first time, not just as a voice, a potential performance, but as a real person, a young girl trying to find her way, wanting to be normal. Miss Clark, Claridini, Emma, she said with a new tone of respect in her voice. I apologize. I belittled you. That was unacceptable behavior. Emma smiled gently. It's okay, Mrs. Peterson. I actually wanted to be treated as just a normal student here, but I guess that's not possible anymore. Mrs. Peterson nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps not, but maybe you can contribute in a different way. Your experience, your voice, these are valuable gifts. Perhaps you could share them with the other students, but on your own terms. Emma's eyes lit up. That would be really wonderful. From that moment on, Mrs. Peterson's vocal performance class completely changed. The revelation of Emma's true identity changed not only the dynamics in the class, but also Mrs. Peterson's teaching approach. First, at Emma's request, the class promised to keep her identity secret outside of school. This was an unprecedented show of solidarity among Westridge students. Although some rumors circulated, Emma's identity largely remained within the school boundaries. Second, Emma began giving mini workshops to her classmates on opera and classical vocal technique. Initially hesitant, Mrs. Peterson soon recognized Emma's extraordinary pedagogical talents. Despite all her technical knowledge, Emma was extremely humble and supportive. She never acted superior and helped each student develop at their own pace. The voice is the most personal instrument, Emma explained to the class. Each voice is unique, and each vocal journey is different. What matters is not technical perfection, but being able to express yourself with your own voice. As Mrs. Peterson watched Emma's approach, she began to question her own teaching philosophy. For years, she had intimidated her students, belittled them, believed that only the best could succeed. But Emma's approach was completely different, inclusive, supportive, and positive. And most surprisingly, with this approach, students performed better. The atmosphere in the class began to change. Now there was support and collaboration instead of fear and competition. Students had begun to help each other rather than criticize. Each was discovering their own voice, developing their own style. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Peterson called Emma to her office. There was a tense atmosphere in the room. Emma sat in the chair across from the teacher, her hands folded in her lap. "Emma," said Mrs. Peterson, with no trace of her usual formal tone. Her voice was softer, more human. "I want to speak openly with you." Emma nodded, waiting. "At your age, I thought I was as talented as you." "At least I thought so," began Mrs. Peterson. Her eyes drifted to a framed photograph on her desk. A young woman, a scene from a Broadway musical. "I had big dreams, singing at the Metropolitan Opera, going on a world tour, becoming a star." She paused for a moment, seemingly lost in her memories. "I had a career on Broadway, but my solo career never turned out the way I wanted. I went to several auditions, always got rejected. Your voice is strong, but not distinctive. Your technique is good, but lacks emotional depth. You don't have the right look." A different excuse each time. Emma listened with understanding. Despite her young age, she knew the ruthlessness of the music world very well. "And I guess I projected that disappointment onto my students," continued Peterson, her voice trembling slightly. "I thought if I couldn't make it, only the strongest, most disciplined, most perfect could. So I pushed everyone, scared them, criticized them. I thought I was preparing them for the ruthlessness of the real world." Mrs. Peterson stood up, walked to the window, looked at the campus view. "Watching your approach," she continued, "I realized how toxic my perspective on music and teaching had become. I chose to see students' deficiencies rather than their potential. I intimidated them instead of encouraging them." "Everyone has different teaching styles," said Emma gently. "You're really a good technical teacher, Mrs. Peterson. Your students learn a lot from you." Peterson smiled, but her eyes were sad. "Thank you, Emma. But being a good teacher isn't just about transferring technical knowledge. It's also about nurturing students' spirits, fueling their passion, making them believe in themselves. You do this naturally, and you succeeded. You reach places I never could." "But you succeeded too," said Emma. "Here at Westridge, you're shaping young people's lives. That's also an achievement." Peterson nodded. "Yes, I suppose so, but I can do better now. Emma, I wanted to ask you something. Would you help me with the classes this semester as a kind of co-teacher? I think we all have a lot to learn from you, students and me." A warm smile spread across Emma's face. "I'd be delighted, Mrs. Peterson, but on one condition." "What is it?" "That you call me just Emma, not Miss Clark or Miss Claridini. Just Emma. I'm just a student, at least here." Peterson smiled. "Deal, Emma." From that day on, the vocal performance class at Westridge School of the Arts became the most popular and sought-after course at the school. Together, Emma and Mrs. Peterson created a new curriculum that developed both students' technical skills and their courage to express themselves. Mrs. Peterson now supported her students instead of belittling them, helping each discover their unique voice and style. She shared her technical expertise and Broadway experience, but now she gave courage and inspiration instead of fear and humiliation. Emma shared her technical mastery and the stage experience, but always remained humble and encouraging. She often reminded students, "You don't have to be an opera star. What matters is loving music and expressing yourself. Music is about sharing and communication, not perfectionism." Within a month, the dynamics of the class had completely changed. Students now supported each other instead of competing. Everyone was discovering their strengths, accepting their weaknesses, and developing together. Most importantly, everyone was enjoying making music. Midterm, Mrs. Peterson and Emma decided to give a special concert for students' families and the school administration. This would be an opportunity for students to showcase their newly learned techniques and expression styles. On the day of the concert hall in Victoria Hall was completely full. Students, families, teachers, and school administration had gathered to watch the vocal performance classes show. Mrs. Peterson gave a short opening speech. "Welcome. Today we are proud to showcase the incredible development and passion of our students. This semester has been a period of learning and growth for all of us, and I want to thank a very special person who has helped us on this journey. Mrs. Peterson turned to Emma with a genuine expression of appreciation in her eyes. Emma Clark, or as some of you may know her, Emma Claridini, without her guidance and inspiration, we wouldn't be here today. A murmur of astonishment spread through the hall. The name Emma Claridini was recognized in classical music circles. Some parents were looking at each other, whispering. "Emma, will you join us?" asked Mrs. Peterson. Emma came on stage, humbly bowing her head to greet the crowd. "Thank you, Mrs. Peterson. But today's stars aren't us. It's these amazing students. Watching their development, working with them, has been a great honor and pleasure for me." The concert began, and each student performed their chosen piece. Sarah Williams gave a more emotional and controlled performance than ever before. Michael Chen combined his technical perfection with emotional depth. Jessica Reynolds impressed everyone with her articulation and expression. But perhaps the most impressive performance came from a student who had never sung solo before, Thomas Reed, a shy tenor who had been afraid to use his voice. Emma had worked with him privately, boosting his confidence, helping him discover the unique timbre in his voice. As Thomas sang Schubert's Ständchen serenade, everyone in the hall was enchanted. His voice might not have been technically perfect, but it was so full of emotion and sincerity that many listeners' eyes watered. At the end of the concert, the entire class came on stage and collectively performed Verdi's Va Pensiero chorus. This choice wasn't coincidental. The piece was the song of freedom and hope from the exiled Israelites. As each student contributed their voice to the harmony of the chorus, they exemplified the perfect example of the unifying power of togetherness and music. When the performance ended, the hall erupted in standing ovations. There was pride and happiness on the students' faces. Mrs. Peterson couldn't hold back her tears. Emma stood in the background, smiling modestly. At the reception after the concert, Principal Harrington approached Emma and Mrs. Peterson. "That was extraordinary," he said, with genuine admiration. "I've never seen such a transformation, such development before. You two, you've created something really special here." "Thank you, Principal," said Mrs. Peterson, "but the real credit belongs to Emma. She reminded me and my students of the true meaning of music." "No," said Emma. "This was a collaboration. Without Mrs. Peterson's technical knowledge and experience, we couldn't have achieved anything. And of course, without these wonderful students." Principal Harrington nodded thoughtfully. "Emma, I know you want to maintain your anonymity, but it's very difficult to keep such talent and passion secret. Maybe you could consider a more formal role, perhaps a class or a program." Emma hesitated. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm ready yet." "Just think about it," said the principal. "The guidance of someone like you could be valuable for many young musicians." Emma nodded. "I'll think about it." At the end of the semester, Emma decided to continue her education at Westridge, but also decided to return to Milan for a semester to work with Maestro Giuliani. However, her promise to Westridge wasn't forgotten. Upon returning from the holiday, Emma and Mrs. Peterson started a new program called Every Voice Matters. This program focused on students traditionally overlooked for music education. Economically disadvantaged students, disabled students, or simply those lacking self-confidence. The program started with Saturday workshops on the Westridge campus. Emma, Peterson, and volunteer students provided free vocal training to children and young people from the community. Initially small, the program quickly grew and made a significant impact in the local community. "Everyone has a voice," Emma and Mrs. Peterson would say at the opening of each program, "and every voice deserves to be heard." A year later, the Every Voice Matters program transformed into a national scholarship program. It provided financial support for music education, organized mentorship programs, and opened pathways to conservatories for disadvantaged youth. After completing her education at Juilliard, Emma continued her professional career, but also began working as a special program director at Westridge. She used her fame on the opera stage as a platform to provide music education to young people. Even after retiring, Mrs. Peterson continued to volunteer in the Every Voice Matters program. There was no trace left of that strict, ruthless teacher. She had been replaced by a patient, supportive, and inspiring mentor. Emma taught me the most valuable lesson of my life, she would often tell new teachers. Music isn't a competition for perfection, it's a means of self-expression and sharing. And she always gave this advice to new teachers. Listen to your students, really listen, because sometimes the quietest ones have the most to say. The story of Emma and Mrs. Peterson became a legend at Westridge School of the Arts. Each year, new students would be told how a shy-looking girl changed a class, a teacher, and eventually a school. And each year, at the anniversary of the Every Voice Matters program, Emma and Mrs. Peterson would take the stage together and sing a duet, usually O Mio Babbino Caro, the piece where it all began. These two women from different generations and backgrounds exemplified the perfect example of the unifying power of music. Today, Emma Claridini is recognized not only as a world-class opera artist, but also as a respected music educator and the founder of the Every Voice Matters Foundation. The foundation provides music education to thousands of young people and promotes diversity and inclusivity in the music world. And she reminds each new student, never judge anyone by their appearance, because inside every person, there is a magnificent voice that can emerge when given the right opportunity. Patricia Peterson, even after retirement, continues to work as a volunteer in the Every Voice Matters program. She compiled her memories in a book titled Hearing Silent Genius, A Music Teacher's Transformation Journey. In her book, she wrote, "Throughout my career, I taught thousands of students, but I received the greatest lesson from a quiet-seeming girl who carried a symphony inside her." The story of Emma and Mrs. Peterson became a source of inspiration, not only in the music world, but also in the education world. The program they established inspired similar programs worldwide and changed the lives of thousands of young musicians. Because sometimes the most powerful voices come from the quietest hearts, and sometimes a teacher's greatest lesson comes from a student. What did you learn from this story? Have you ever been judged by your appearance, or have you judged someone that way? Share your experiences in the comments. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We'll be back every week with similar inspiring stories. Which country are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments. Remember, true talent is always within us, and appearance never reflects the potential inside.